Coming up on Newswatch in Focus, it's hot and extremely dry with seemingly no end and little to no rain in sight. We'll talk to a local climatologist about why drought conditions occur and what it means for residents and local businesses in the area struggling to keep lawns watered, boats afloat, and houses cool. And we'll take a look at what made local headlines this week on Newswatch. All that and more coming up. Stay tuned. Newswatch in Focus starts now. Welcome and thanks for joining us for Newswatch in Focus. I'm your host, Kate Pleasant. Newswatch in Focus takes an in-depth look at the latest news stories from the greater Mattoon and Charleston area, as well as those surrounding it each week. Our topic this week is drought conditions caused by the little amounts of precipitation we've seen across the area for the last few weeks. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, but first, let's take a look at what made headlines on WEIU Newswatch this week. Mattoon police responded to a burglary alarm call at the Shores Jewelry on Broadway Avenue. When officers arrived, they found the rear door forced open and items missing. The Mattoon Police Department is asking anyone with information to contact them or the Coles County Crime Stoppers. Last month, the Zales outlet store in Tuscola was burglarized. No arrests have been made in that case, and Tuscola authorities have turned over their investigation into the May 1st jewelry store burglary to another police department. They say that's because the incident is most likely connected to a break-in in Tinley Park. And the demolition has begun on Oakland High School. The school rang its last bell this spring, and demolition began this week. A new school is being built next door, and school officials say they will host an open house later this summer to showcase the new facility.
Down with the old and in with the new. Oakland is preparing to demolish its old high school. Even though lots of memories were made here over the years, many are anxious for a new beginning for their school.
It's got a lot of memories there, but you know, I mean, if it was outdated and everything like it is, then times are changing. It needs to be updated. So that's what the community of Oakland has done.
Things have to sometimes be tore down because they're older buildings, and you know, new things always have to come, and we have to advance in life. You can't really dwell on what happened in the past.
And some of those memories won't be lost. Demolition of the school starts with salvaging what can be used in a new building.
We finished the school year in the building at the end of May, and when the school year finished, we moved everything out that we were going to keep in the new building and moved that over, and then there was some work and some construction work that had to be completed before the demolition could start.
The older building offered more space the school really didn't need since their enrollment had gone down. The new building is smaller, but has a whole lot more to offer.
We have a newer science lab that meets all the different safety requirements. We have a computer lab that was specifically built to be a computer lab, not a classroom that was converted to a computer lab such as in the old building. The family consumer science room is updated with new appliances. So actually we have less room in the new school, but everything in there is obviously newer and updated.
A local university is being recognized for its commitment to community service. Eastern Illinois University is one of 513 schools on the President's Higher Education Community Service Honor Roll. EIU students have completed more than 110,000 hours of community service to more than 40 different organizations in the Coles County area. Officials say these efforts represent an ongoing, long-term commitment Eastern students have to their community. And staying at EIU, a rare plant that has quite an odor is set to bloom this weekend. The H.F. Toot greenhouse on the campus is home to the flower, affectionately known as the Velvet Queen. The flower will bloom for only one night and will open around 6 p.m. and close around 5 the next morning. The plant is expected to bloom sometime between tomorrow and Monday and is said to smell like rotting meat when it does open up. The flower received over 1,000 in-person visitors when it bloomed in 2010. The greenhouse will host extended hours on the day the plant blooms so people can come and see it. The public will be notified of the blooming via the Toot Greenhouse page on Twitter. Lakeland College is working on a building that will teach students to conserve energy. The college was recently awarded a $25,000 grant by the Lumpkin Family Foundation. The grant will help fund the net zero energy building known as Zeb Hall. The building will serve as a laboratory for green job training programs at Lakeland. Zeb Hall will be located at the southwest corner of the Student Center. And money is tight in a lot of places these days, and when it comes to the 4th of July celebrations, they're no exception. Newswatch's Kristen Leone has more.
When this time of year rolls around, Kevin Huffman crunches a lot of numbers.
We've kind of struggled a little bit. We haven't received as much from the Village of Arthur as we have in the past, but you know, we're aware of their budget restrictions.
Huffman is part of the Arthur Rotary Clubs, and he keeps close tabs on what's being spent on the town's 4th of July festival.
We pay for some skydivers to come in. We pay for some small airplanes.
With a celebration that calls for all that, plus music, fireworks, and live entertainment, it also calls for quite a bit of funding.
We'd have to cut back on the size of the show. I mean, I can't imagine that we would get to the place where we'd cancel it.
And like Arthur, money's tight when it comes to Charleston's Red, White, and Blue Days.
Unfortunately, you know, with funding down, other costs continue to go up. It's like the stage rental, even the porta potty rental's gone up. You know, just things like that. You know, all the costs continue to go up. Funding's a little tough right now.
And because of that, Coffrin says those planning the celebration have spent wisely.
We're going to go ahead and have 3 great entertainers, a wonderful parade, lots of activities in the park. So we're going to go on just like we had all the money in the world.
Officials say the heat and drought-like conditions could also be extremely dangerous, especially for the elderly and children. Illinoisans are reminded to take precautions and check on family members and neighbors. To help keep you safe, Governor Pat Goodwin says the state has opened more than 120 cooling centers. Those centers are at the Illinois Department of Human Service offices across the state. For a list of local centers, you can visit our website at weiu.net. And local firefighters are also having to contend with the heat. Newswatch's Kristen Leone is back and caught up with a few local departments to see how they're trying to stay cool.
Firefighter Mark Beabout is ready to battle a blaze the minute the siren sounds.
The gear has a layer to protect us from the heat as well as a layer to protect us from the moisture. So it's basically a 3-layer coat that's very heavy. With the 75 pounds of gear and the gear that they have to wear, our big issues, if we do get another incident, even a medical incident, a car accident or a rescue, is the rotation of personnel.
Charleston Fire Chief Pat Goodwin says the heat is an issue and it takes a lot out of firefighters. He also says they almost always get dehydrated when called to a fire in this kind of weather.
Our biggest thing is to hydrate them, get them out of that environment, the hot environment, get them cooled off, so then we can put them back in.
The Effingham Fire Department knows about this all too well. They were called out to extinguish a substantial garage fire Tuesday night, and Captain Jim Charter describes the conditions he and his 15 men had to face.
Last night we didn't have any. We try and keep an eye on that, but you can watch it as much as you can and it could still happen. So there has been a few people, you know, and the biggest thing then is just to cool them off, get some fluids in them and get them out of the hot temperatures and then keep an eye on them.
While it's important firefighters stay hydrated, it's also crucial cities and towns have an ample water supply to put fires out. Even with a drought happening in parts of central Illinois, firefighters say that's not something the community should worry about.
We have an ample water supply. The hydrant system in the city has been fantastic. They've been very proactive over the years of updating the water system in the city. We pretty much have a good water supply everywhere. The lake is full, the river, so really water is not an issue here in Charleston.
With the little bit of rain lately and the high winds, it's dried out the ground to the level where a small fire, a campfire, or a field fire could become uncontained very rapidly. So fire officials say to avoid burning whenever possible right now. And speaking of dry conditions, most of the state is seeing them, and it's starting to affect local people and businesses. Businesses with garden centers are starting to see their plants die. Grass isn't growing, so local lawn care companies are even starting to slim down their crews. But there will be rain and it will come back. It's just hard to say when. That's why we'll be back next with Cameron Craig from Eastern Illinois University's Geology Department to talk more about what's causing this drought and if we can expect to see some relief anytime soon. Pat Goodwin, Charleston's fire chief, will also be on hand to talk about what the dry conditions mean for the fire department and local residents. Stay tuned. Newswatch in Focus will be right back. Wonder where we get our story inspirations from? Make sure to tune in to Newswatch every weeknight at 5:30 right here on WEIU to find out. Newswatch in Focus takes a local story from the week that was featured on Newswatch and goes more in depth. For more local news, weather, and sports, tune in to Newswatch every weeknight at 5:30. And we're back with Cameron Craig from EIU's Geology Geography Department and Pat Goodwin, the Fire Chief for the City of Charleston. Thank you for joining me today, gentlemen.
Pleasure.
I appreciate it. And we're, of course, talking about drought conditions. So first of all, Cameron, are we in a drought?
As of Tuesday, we are officially in a moderate drought situation.
Okay. And what exactly does that mean?
A lack of precipitation, as
Okay.
everyone knows. We haven't seen any rain. For the month thus far, we've only received 0.79 inches of rain.
Okay.
The average, the 30-year average, is 4.03.
Oh,
so we are
we're way behind.
under. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I'm sure that that is affecting people in various ways.
Oh yeah. Well, here's what happens: if lack of precipitation, in the water in the soil helps cool things down because of evaporation. But when you don't have any water in the soil, then things start to heat up. And so that's why, kind of why we're seeing extreme temperatures in the low 90s.
Okay, and does it actually impede the ability to have more precipitation when this happens?
Yes, because you have a dry surface. When you do have the chance of rain, it evaporates before it hits the surface. So you need to have a significant amount of rain to saturate the lower atmosphere so that the rain can get through to the surface. And then you have to have a long period of rain, several days, where it's not heavy downpour, but you have it light, a drizzle almost, so that the moisture soaks through the soil profile.
Okay, so a little bit of rain is not going to do any good.
Right.
So we're going to need days.
Yes,
upon
days
of
and
rain.
days.
Okay.
That's right.
And one big heavy rain wouldn't do it either.
No, because what happens is a heavy rain, it just sits on the surface and it doesn't go down very far. Then the sun comes out, like in a thunderstorm. The sun comes out and then it evaporates. The sun kind of bakes the land even more. So yeah, a thunderstorm isn't going to give us much.
Okay, and what's the outlook like?
Not good.
Not good.
Not good. We do have a chance of scattered showers later next week, but again, that's way out there. And so we'll just keep our fingers crossed.
Okay, so right now though, it's just going to be warm.
Yes,
and dry.
warm, hot, and muggy and dry.
Not good for a lot of people, especially like your guys, Pat, right? I know
Yes.
you're probably seeing some issues with the heat more so than the dryness.
Yeah, the dryness is not affecting us so much right now because there is still some greenery out there. The crops, the grasses are still green. So that's not affecting us as far as the fire side. The temperatures are what our concern is for the guys.
Okay, and what are you seeing? What are you taking precautions for and things like that?
We're trying to get the guys hydrated early. Studies have shown that firefighters are moderately dehydrated prior to ever going to the incident.
Okay.
So we're trying to keep them hydrated throughout the day. Ice water in all the vehicles, have them drinking ice water throughout the day. That way they're hydrated before they ever go to the incident. The problems with the heat is if they're moderately dehydrated prior to the incident, we're going in, we're putting them, encapsulating them in all this gear, elevating their temperatures, putting them in a fire situation, even elevating their temperatures more, their blood thickens. So if they're already moderately dehydrated, the temperatures even dehydrate some more, and then that's what's killing firefighters. We're actually having them throw clots because their blood's getting so thick.
Okay.
So our biggest concern is to keep them hydrated early throughout the whole day and not after the incident. We want to get them hydrated before the incident.
Okay, so that's kind of an ongoing thing that you're working on with them all day. So are you seeing any problems outside of the firefighters with drought or temperature? I mean, any burns getting out of control or anything like that?
No, like I said, the crops are still green. Most of the grasses are still green. Our biggest issue, and even the rural departments, are in the spring and the fall when the vegetation is dead. Right now there's still plenty of greenery out there, except for some grass burning maybe in a yard or whatever. The significant wildland fires or risk is really low right now in this time of year. Even though we're in a drought, there's still a lot of greenery out there.
Okay, so it's not dry enough yet to cause problems for you necessarily.
If we stay in this drought, and he says the outlook is bleak, if we go another 2 or 3 months where the crops actually start dying, especially in this fall, if we're still in this dry condition, it's going to be a significant factor this fall, maybe more in August and September.
Okay, so that's when you would look at, possibilities of fires spreading more rapidly and things like that.
When the vegetation, the crops start to die this fall, especially if we don't get the rain, they're going to start maturing and dying earlier. It is going to be a high risk.
Okay, and what do you do to prepare for that? Because I'm sure you're prepared probably all year round for situations like that. Is there any special training or anything that firefighters take just to know about these types of situations?
We don't have a whole lot of wildland firefighters incidents in Charleston where
Right.
we have grass fires and a few small things. The rural areas is more where the high risk is for the wildland stuff, and the rural firefighters are taking wildland firefighting classes. There's a new era out there of attacking these wildlands instead of trying to attack the fire, make fire breaks and let the fire come to you and extinguish it itself. We don't want to get firefighters killed or injured risking to save grass.
Okay.
Grass is not a loss.
Right.
So why get somebody injured or killed putting that risk out there, especially in this, and we're talking about the heat. Then if this heat sticks around until August or September, we're going to have a problem.
Okay. And what about burning ordinances in Charleston? And because I know a lot of people don't even know what they're allowed to do.
Right now, the ordinance stipulates that you can burn vegetation that's produced on your property. You can't bring it in from other sites around town to burn on your property.
Okay.
And we're limited to 3 feet by 3 feet fire off the roadway during daylight hours, more than 25 feet from a structure. That's not very big fire. And we reserve the right, if there is a smoke condition that is a concern, a health risk to somebody, or if there's a complaint, we will have the right to either ask it put out or we will extinguish the fire for you.
Okay.
We still do allow recreational fires. They either have to be in a pit, contained, or in a burn container for recreational. And those still cannot be bigger than a 2x2 fire.
Okay. And are there approved containers for burning?
There's approved containers. There's commercial containers you can buy at the local stores. A lot of people have the rims off tires that they can burn in. Something that can contain that into a tight area.
Okay, so something that can't also catch on fire.
Yes.
Okay, is digging a hole in your backyard and burning in it acceptable?
That's still in a pit, yes.
Okay, it's still considered a pit. Okay, and what can people do? You know, as you said, it gets in the fall and maybe it's a little bit drier. What are some precautions they can take to make sure that they don't unnecessarily start or spread a fire?
There's a couple issues. In town, out of town, having vegetation grow up around buildings. Keep it manicured, keep it down. When this fall, when it does start to mature and die, then the fire risk is high. We don't want vegetation around the buildings. In the fall, there's a huge issue of people burning trash, especially out in the counties. It's dry, it's windy. If we're going to drought, that's going to magnify the issue. And burning trash, they just throw it in the barrel and they don't maintain it. And the next thing you know, we have a true wildland fire because the winds in the fall will pick up and it becomes a significant issue.
So we can carry that trash away and start fires elsewhere.
Yep.
So, probably don't burn on windy days and, don't walk away from anything that you're burning.
That's it. Just maintain it. We have so many fires that people ignite and will just leave and not be monitoring the fire situation. If it gets out of hand, they can summons help quick when they're there. When the neighbor calls it in, it's already past the early stages and it becomes an issue.
Okay. And as far as droughts go, back to you, Cameron, what does it look like historically around this area? Do we usually see drought conditions every year?
Well, last year we did see a drought from August through September, early October. Yeah, so they're periodic. Historically, yes, but the significant droughts that we've had in this area were the early 80s, the mid 50s, and then, of course, 1930s.
Right, which is, Dust Bowl era.
The Dust Bowl, yeah.
And is it something that, is it more frequent now than it was then? Or?
That I'm not sure.
Okay.
That would be an interesting study to see if it is, there is more frequency of it. The only thing is, we do experience periods of dryness, but, what is that frequency? That's a good question.
Okay. And what would it take to get us back on track, I guess you'd say, weather-wise? I mean,
lots and lots of rain. Just everybody participate in bringing a bucket and no. We need to, several days, a week worth of significant rain. We need to, like I said, we're just over 3/4 of an inch. We need to get to 4 for this month.
Right.
And then we had to do some catch up last month as well, because I think we were down maybe 2.5 inches, yes, in May. So we need to make up for that to put moisture in the soil, but we also have to have a surplus to keep us out of a drought. So the droughts are one of those chain reaction type things. Once you don't get that precipitation, the temperatures go up, the winds increase, and then it keeps going. It's just like a snowball effect without any snow.
Right. Okay. So would you have any advice for people in dealing with drought conditions or heat, either one of you?
With the drought conditions, we can't be watering our lawns every day.
That's kind of what I was getting at, you know.
It just wastes water. The grass will come back. It'll, like you said, it'll come back. It dies. It comes back. But you know, watering your lawn is going to put further, you know, limitations on our dwindling water supply. I'm from just north of Indianapolis, and there's a reservoir in my hometown. Indianapolis Water asked to drain the reservoir so many feet because Indianapolis doesn't have water.
Right.
And so we don't want to get into that situation where we have to have limitations on our water.
Sources.
Yeah.
Okay. And what about you? What would you say? I know that there's been talks about opening cooling centers, you know, for dealing with heat, but we haven't done that yet. Is that correct?
Usually the cooling centers get open when the temperature gets to 95 and pushes at 98, 99, when heat index is over 100. We'll open cooling centers throughout the city, or even in some areas in the county. We haven't been to that point yet. Last week it was pretty warm and it was getting close. Like today, that cool front tomorrow is supposed to be high of like 87. So right now we're holding off on the cooling centers. The biggest thing is if you're at home, sit in front of a fan if you do not have air conditioning, and drink water. Drink plenty of fluids. You need to drink 4 to 6, 8 glasses of water minimum a day to stay hydrated.
Yeah, and on that, where if you have to be outside, wear light-colored clothes. Because it will reflect the solar radiation. So, yeah, I think that people just need to stay indoors a little bit, you know, just to stay in cool environment.
Right. You know, because dealing with the heat, no unnecessary exposure is probably the best way to go.
Right.
So, have you guys seen any? Have you had to do any fires in the heat yet so far?
No, none. It's been really nice. People watch what they're doing. The code's improved so much over the years that right now the fire risk has been low and the fire call volume has been low so far. Actually the last month here.
Okay, so nothing significant, no increases or anything?
It always goes down this time of year when the students are gone.
Okay.
So between that and the summer and everybody's on vacations, if we're gonna have a drought, this is the best time to have it right now.
Especially for the fire perspective anyway,
Yes.
right? Okay. And have you ever dealt with a significant fire due to drought in the past? Do you remember anything, you know, that was ever kind of wildland fires or anything like that?
Usually if it is, it's more in the fall when the crops becomes a big issue. We get those 20, 30 mile an hour windy days and standing corn. That's when it becomes a risk and a real hazard.
Okay.
I got a small story. When I was a little kid, my father was farming, and he was cleaning out the fence row. Well, the fire got out of control. I mean, there were spikes of flames, you know, 30, 40 feet, and he came running back all scorched, and we need to call the police, the fire department. I'm like, yeah, obviously. You know?
Yeah, so you know.
So it can get out of control. I mean, in a situation like that, it does get out of control quickly.
I was going to say, is that something you know you hear is that they turned around and all of a sudden it was
They do.
this
They turn
big?
around and it's gone. Especially these dry days like last week we had or just this week we had 25, 30 mile an hour sustained winds, gusts up to 40. You cannot believe how fast a fire will travel with 30, 40 mile an hour winds.
So stay away from burning and things like that if
Yes.
it's windy outside. So is there any potential for those ordinances to change in town someday? I mean, is that something that's been looked at?
It's been looked at. It's been looked at for several years. We're still looking at it, so we'll see what happens with that.
Okay. Are there other cities, you know, that have seen reductions if they don't allow burning? You know, has that been beneficial, do you think, or?
For the fire hazard, no. For the health risk,
Okay.
it has improved because you don't have, it's carcinogens, it's smoke, it's byproducts of fire. It's a health issue, and then now you're dispersing these in the air. So for fire risk, it hasn't made that big a difference. Health factor, it will make a huge difference.
Okay, so that's obviously lots of things to be considered there for that. So, and Cameron, is this what people are talking about right now?
Oh yes, everybody's talking about it.
People in the weather world?
Yes, I walk across campus and I run into individuals, my bosses, supervisors, students, you know, and they blame me for this.
Blame the weatherman, right?
That's right, blame the weatherman. So, but I have a tough skin. Yeah, it's on people's minds. They're ready for you know, a nice rain.
Yeah, because you always hear people complaining about rain sometimes, you know, but in situations like this, it becomes a whole different issue.
That's right. So. It's one thing like you're tired of the heat now. You want to get to winter. And then you get tired of winter. Now you want to go back to summer.
Right.
You know, we never
never
really
happy
like
with the weather,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
Okay, and so when people are blaming you for the weather, is it really hard to predict? Because I know a lot of people, you know, get down on the weathermen. They say, well, they said it was going to rain.
Let me put it to you this way. 3 days out, forecast 3 days out is really good. When we go to that 4th day and through the 7th day, it gets worse.
So the certainty kind of...
Yes, the certainty of that for accuracy is going to be reduced as each day you go out from day 4.
So 10-day forecasts
10-day forecasts are not good. Even 14-day, they're not good. The 3-day, great. We can give an idea day 4 through 7. We'll give you an idea. But you know, because what happens is the models show these big storms moving in, but yeah, that's not going to happen.
And what do you, when you talk about models, can you explain to people in layman's terms what that is?
Models are numerical prediction that they take conditions that are occurring right now and then they look towards the future. And it just compiles.
So that's kind of what you're using. So I mean, it's a science, but
that's right. It's an art too, because you go outside and you kind of, this is what's happening, and you kind of use your instincts.
Okay, so don't blame the weatherman. Right?
That's right. Don't blame me.
He's doing the best that he can.
You've got a great job. You know?
All right. Well, we thank Cameron and Pat for coming and bringing this issue into focus for us today. We're about out of time, but we hope you'll stay tuned next for the Four Rivers Ag Report with Fred Peralta. Until next time, I'm Kate Pleasant. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in to Newswatch in Focus. Is there a news story happening in your community? Let us know about it. You can email our newsroom at news@weiu.net. Call us at 581-2911 or write to us at 600 Lincoln Avenue, Charleston, Illinois 61920.